now recognize Ms. Chu of California.
Ms. Phillips, the Niskanen Center, and indeed some on this dais, assert that the formula that allocates the appropriations among states unfairly shortchanges certain states because the state employers pay more federal UI taxes than they receive in federal administrative payments. But the reason that certain central and southeastern states receive smaller allocations is that they erect barriers to receiving UI benefits. They pay UI benefits to fewer workers and therefore have a smaller claims processing and payment workload. Is that correct?
So that is, I worked for Illinois Department of Employment Security and probably am not the right person to ask on other states, but lower benefits would result in a lower FUTA. I do want to say, Representative Chu, that one of the things that Mr. Rademan's testimony is spot on is that when states have fewer resources when they need to make the improvements the most, that's a problem, right? State capacity during the pandemic was at its lowest point, and the funding goes up when it's raining the hardest, but the funding goes down when states need to really ramp up and improve both technological and process improvements.
Well, one thing is clear, there has not been full funding on helping the states deal with the UI workload, and that this problem has been going on consistently. In fact, the only time they really had those funds was when the American Rescue Plan modernization funding came in, which you testified about with regard to its positive benefit. Now, the Biden administration has consistently proposed to increase annual funding and to fully fund the state UI workload to ensure that workers have access to the earned UI benefits while simultaneously helping states prevent fraud and errors. However, Republicans routinely appropriate less than what is needed to fund the state workload. Can you talk about how consistent increased federal funding for UI administration would enable the state workforce agency directors to increase support for staffing and technology and perhaps even having things like equity grants?
Thank you for that question. In my testimony, I celebrate the ARPA UI modernization funding. Congress originally appropriated $2 billion, and last year, as a result of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, that was reduced to $1 billion. As a state administrator at that time, we were planning for that funding. We were working on proposals at that time, and it was a setback, capacity-wise, for us not to know that we were not going to have as many resources for improving technology, improving processes, improving reemployment efforts as well.
Well, we know that these funds that Congress provided through the American Rescue Plan have indeed made significant strides to help states improve their UI systems by detecting and preventing fraud, promoting equitable access, and ensuring the timely payment of benefits since the pandemic. In fact, because California received these funds through ARPA, it was able to actually deal with the fraudulent things that took place, was able to streamline its identity verification and fraud reporting system, expand language access, and also eliminate the backlog of unprocessed claims. So, Ms. Phillips, would these type of improvements have been possible without the American Rescue Plan funding that Democrats provided? And how should the lessons learned from these achievements inform any further reform of the UI system?
Thank you, Representative. I'm going to start backwards with the lessons. Organizations like the Beck Center and others are trying to help connect states with one another. In my testimony, USDOL also has been documenting the ingenuity that states are working on, not only on equitable access to UI, but also on timeliness of benefits and detection of fraud and preventing fraud. I would argue that one of the best ways to prevent and detect fraud is by I know this might sound strange coming from someone working on digital benefits, but making sure that the digital benefit access is also paired with in-person options, as is required by law, is an important fraud prevention mechanism. Your question about whether this would happen, whether all of this innovation would have happened or would be happening if the ARPA funding was not there, I would argue probably not, for many of the reasons that Mr. Rademan was talking about, that the resource justification model makes it difficult to have extra resources to be able to work on modernization efforts.
Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. Now I recognize